Welcome everyone to our lecture for environmental justice. Today we are going to discuss when industry is your neighbor. So let me just share my screen here. Oh, wait a minute. There it is. Share screen. Right there. Okay, we're good to go. When industry is your neighbor. This presentation I did a couple of years ago at the Social Justice Symposium, which is done at Lamar University, Department of Sociology, and we invite guests from all over the country to come speak about social justice issues. And one of our guests was Yale University. They did a small pilot study on the Charlton Pollard neighborhood, which is that neighborhood right across the street from Exxon, which is near to Lamar University. And this presentation will highlight some of the findings from examining the industry that's our neighbor. As you can see here, right here, industry really is our neighbor. This is Lamar University, and you see that industry all right there. So when the athletes go out on the field to play, they are playing and breathing the air that the industry emits. As you can see, these little white cloud smokes right here. It's industry, that's not clouds. And that also travels across the campus, across the neighborhood, across through the city. So let's get rid of this. Give me just a moment trying to get rid of this here. There's my mouse. Bye-bye. Go away. There we go. Okay. Let's talk a little bit more about the industry in Beaumont because we are surrounded by it. Southeast Texas is the #1 exporter of crude in the nation. #1 exporter. That's a lot of industry traffic. That's a lot of crude being exported. The #1 exported of liquid natural gas. That's a lot of gas when you're the #1. Third largest refining capacity in the United States. That's a big refining capacity. Fifth largest port in the US in terms of tonnage. That's a big old port happening right down the street from Lamar University. So we are surrounded by industry. Here you see a map showing our closest industry neighbor. Here in blue, Lamar University. Here in red, ExxonMobil. And here is that little elementary school, Charlton Pollard, that we spoke about a few lectures back. The kids who live and go to school in the same neighborhood, right across the street from ExxonMobil, right across the street from the Port of Beaumont. That's a lot of industry running through those kids' neighborhoods. And then here, these dots on your screen, the 1s, 2s, and 3s, highlight the 23 significant violations and 23 current violations for ExxonMobil. And this is during the period of when this lecture was made. What is going on there now, it might not reflect that, but they always have some type of violation going on, as you have seen from reviewing the TCEQ website. And not only do we have that ExxonMobil refinery right next to us, we also have even more, all under 12 miles away. Here's another ExxonMobil refinery. Here is the Goodyear plant. So it just takes about 15 minutes from our school to get there. So if something bad was going to happen, it would really not be a good idea to be in this area. As you can see, we have a lot of sacrifice stones in Beaumont, not just one. So what does that mean for environmental health? It means that the chance of dying from cancer here is higher as compared to anywhere else in Texas, anywhere else. Let's take a look at these charts. This top one is showing the age-adjusted cancer incidence. So what that word means is like your risk of getting whatever disease or illness. So here in light purple is Jefferson County. Here, sorry, in dark purple, Jefferson County. Light purple is all of Texas. So we can see that prostate cancer, your risk of getting prostate cancer, higher here as compared to Texas. Your risk of getting lung cancer, higher here as compared to anywhere else in Texas. Colon cancer, higher here. Cervical cancer, higher here. Breast cancer, interesting enough, your incidence of getting breast cancer is less as compared to the rest of Texas. This second chart, the bars are flipped. So we are now looking at Texas on top, the light purple, and Jefferson County in the dark purple. And this is your chance of dying from the illness. So your chance of dying from cancer is higher here. Your chance of dying from stroke, higher here. Your chance of dying from heart disease, higher here. Your chance of dying from homicide, higher here. Beaumont is actually the murder capital of Texas, and Port Arthur is also in the top cities. Your chance of dying from lung disease, higher here. Your chance of dying from unintentional injury, higher here. So living in this region is pretty detrimental to your health, as you can see from these charts, this data collected from Christus Health. Your chance of dying from Alzheimer's are higher here as compared to anywhere else in Texas and the United States. That's a lot of death. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of death. Compared to anywhere else in the United States? This is from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC. This is their data. So it's a government organization. Asthma rates are also higher here. Asthma prevalence is particularly important to monitor by geography because asthma can worsen in areas with poor air quality or other environmental triggers. So if your air quality is bad, your asthma rates are probably going to go up. Southeast Texas is home to the largest refinery in the nation. And here you see this little boy playing right here under the refinery smoke. And what I've noticed for myself, specifically, I've never had respiratory issues before coming here to this area. And then when I contracted COVID and got really bad breathing problems, when I was considered recovered, but basically that means like I'm not an acute case anymore, so I wasn't going to drop dead from COVID, but I became someone with long COVID. So my COVID lasted over a year. When I was in Beaumont, it was harder for me to breathe. It was harder on my body than when I went to Hill Country, for example. When I was in Hill Country, I got I felt that I could breathe better and breathe more, and I felt better than when I was here. So looking at Yale's study, Yale looked at several different chemicals in ozone. Sulfur dioxide was one of them, benzene. These are common chemicals that are polluted into the air here in Jefferson County. Ozone is part of a gas of the earth and the atmosphere. And you get this, it happens when you have a lot of pollution from industry, but also from cars, so the trucks and the boats and the cars and everything that is propelling the industry and transporting. That is also bad for us because it's impacting the ozone. Nitric oxide, they also looked at nitrogen dioxide, oxides of nitrogen, hydrogen sulfide, which is that smell, that particular smell that you smell when you come into town here. As soon as you hit into town, you smell that smell. So we did a follow-up to Yale study. We looked at these exact same chemicals that they examined, and we used TCEQ data to do that, so government data, and looked at 2017 to 2018 because this was the period pre and post, directly after Harvey happened. And we looked directly after Harvey happened because the monitors, the governor Abbott, allowed the monitors to be shut down so that the plants could have emergency shutdown and they wouldn't get fined for emitting more pollutants than what they normally should be or are allowed to pollute. And we also looked at the TCEQ data showing missing air monitor hours, and the days were also investigated. So what we found from the two monitors, because we only have two in town, one is 3.2 miles away from the refinery and the other is 1.7 miles away from the refinery. It's actually right across the street from Lamar, the Beaumont Mary air monitor. We examined those two air monitors. And our results from 2017 showed every day in these months that we looked at, these chemicals, and of course, many, many more, were released into the atmosphere. And in 2017 to 2018, you can see that there were more when you look at the exact same months from year to year. So in 2018, which is here, there are more being released than in 2017. And for the Beaumont Mary monitor, because that monitor only examines the one chemical, hydrogen sulfide, from 2017 to 2018, you see the exact same pattern of more chemicals in green, you see, as compared to 2017, you see more chemicals. And then here, right about when Harvey happened, it's really, really spiked up. We really got dumped. And then this orange line is for children and elderly, what the government organizations say is when they will have a negative health response reaction to the smell. And so you can see every single day in August, it was above that rate. Every single day is what you can see from this chart. So hydrogen sulfide was above EPA limits in 2017 and 2018. So we're always above the limits. Both air monitors had a number of missing days. So sometimes they shut down to be recalibrated. Okay. But 213 days and 68 days, that's quite a few days with the only air monitors in town being shut down. So our conclusions that we drew were that Beaumont air quality appears to stay fairly the same on average in 2017. There was missing data, so it's an underestimation, of course. The examination of the yearly max values appeared to be highest in 2017. So they dumped more in 2017. And you saw increased maximum values of hydrogen sulfide being released following Harvey. The WHO, the EPA, and OSHA guidelines are exceeded. That's what we see. And of course, with the missing days, we don't know really how bad it really is because the days are missing. So that's a limitation, a lot of missing data. And another limitation is that our monitors don't measure particulate matter, which we learned about earlier are those little chemicals, little particles that fly around in the air that can give you lung cancer. And it's important because with those little particles that fly around, you can have an early death from heart and lung disease. You increase your risk of lung cancer and to increase COPD. And let's just go back about why the smell, this chart with the children and elderly, why it's alarming that every single day it's above the EPA guidelines. It's alarming because if we go back to hydrogen sulfide and you see, voila, asthma. So it's not surprising our asthma rates are highest in this area. It's because every single day in children, it's not surprising in children, every single day they are being exposed to an alarming amount of hydrogen sulfide. And it can also cause headaches and poor memory. What did we learn? We die more from Alzheimer's in this area. So it also causes tiredness, imbalance, reproductive problems, respiratory, cardiovascular, and nervous system problems. And then for your quality of life is also impacted because you can't open your windows, you're always smelling the smell, so it can be annoying. So that's very concerning and very alarming to see this data. And this data was validated by TCEQ, so that's an advantage. It's not me running around with a little monitor. It actually is a government grade monitor. So that means that the data meets EPA quality assurance criteria. So it really is so that these rates are above the EPA guidelines. So despite missing data in Beaumont, what we know is that Beaumont residents are constantly exposed to low level amounts of chemical each day. Every single day, you are exposed to chemicals, period. That will happen in Beaumont, period. And that very much explains our higher rates of cancer, with the exception of breast cancer, and our higher rates of death from all cancers as compared to anywhere else in Texas. And what does this mean about climate change? Well, with climate change, we know that our storms are getting worse. They are going to come more frequently. We had Harvey, we had Imelda, there will be more. And when these storms happen, the industry gets a green light to dump and pollute during the disasters. One of the things that I always do during a disaster is I book it out of here. I don't care if it's a small one or a big one, because I know that industry is allowed to pollute more and they're going to dump on us. And I would like not to be dumped on or be exposed to that many chemicals. It does. I don't need that. And during Harvey, 8.3 million pounds of unauthorized air pollution occurred in this area. 2 million pounds were released in Beaumont and Port Arthur. 100,000 pounds during Imelda. The largest polluter during Imelda was ExxonMobil in Beaumont at 36,000 pounds. That's a lot. Our neighbor, our industry neighbor. So long-term exposure to pollution is, of course, damaging to health. We saw those past slides. And in Beaumont, we are all affected. The EPA guidelines for children and the elderly are being exceeded, and Beaumont was once on the TCEQ watch list for hydrogen sulfide, and perhaps it's time for a reevaluation, because as we saw, those max values were above industry standard. So that's like when you start speeding, you're getting caught, you're at your max value, you're getting caught, and you have your speeding ticket, and every single time they got caught speeding at a maximum speed and maximum value, they were above the speed limit. They were above the EPA guidelines for where you should be for the health of children and the elderly for a hydrogen sulfide. So perhaps it is time for a reevaluation. I cannot reiterate or restate that enough because these rates are alarming. And there's a lot of missing data. 213 days for one monitor alone. And that needs to be explained because these are government monitors. They should work. And of course, there's times for recalibration or whatnot, but 213 days? What we know is that industry is not going anywhere. We need them, and that is just how it is. So what we need them to be is better neighbors, especially following a disaster. So more research on health solutions are needed for our city. And so this is when we need to sit down, academics, policymakers, and industry leaders. We need to sit down and have a discussion on how we can best move forward because industry is our neighbor. Yet we know that industry and the results of industry are making us sick, and especially our children. So how and what can we do to better move forward? Those are the next steps. I thank you guys for listening to this lesson. That is it for today. Good luck with finishing up. I'm sure you guys are all going to do great. I really hope that you are learning something that you can keep with you about environmental justice and about the environment, because we only have one Earth. We don't get another one. There is no do-over when we mess this one up. So it's very important for us not just to live for today, but also tomorrow. Thank you. Have a nice day.